It appears that teachers are fed up with Donald Trump. Now, a coalition representing millions of American teachers and parents went after the president, as well as Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, over their push to reopen schools without a real plan to protect their students. So, of course, not protecting students is kind of like a go to move for Republicans, especially in the Trump administration. Nonetheless, right, the NEA, the National Education Association, the National Parent Teacher Association, and four other teachers groups issued a joint statement late on Tuesday that criticized Trump and DeVos's guidance for safely reopening schools. So now the president, of course, has been pushing the reopening of schools, and that's despite a massive surge in COVID-19 cases all over the country. So now, let's see. Um, According to this statement, the White House and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention have offered at best conflicting guidance for school reopening, and today offered little additional insight. Without a comprehensive plan that includes federal resources to provide for the safety of our students and educators, with funding for PPE, socially distanced instruction, and addressing racial inequity, we could be putting students, their families, and educators in danger. That statement came just hours after Trump said during a roundtable at the White House that his administration is putting pressure on governors and everybody else to open up schools, to get them open. And not only that, but Betsy DeVos has also threatened to pull funding from schools that have decided not to or have made the decision not to reopen immediately. So, yeah, pulling funding from schools that want to protect their students and their teachers and the kids' parents as well. Classy Republican move. Now, in fact, here's what Trump said about that. We're going to be putting a lot of pressure on open your schools in the fall. And he also accused local officials of keeping schools closed for, quote, political reasons. So I couldn't imagine what political reason there would be to keep schools closed, but whatever. We'll get to that. Now, DeVos also said this. Under the president's strong leadership, our economy is roaring back. Our schools must do the same. But that's not the case. Look, our economy is still kind of a disaster. I mean, it's literally still on fire. Maybe not literally, but you know what I mean. It's at least bleeding. Okay, that's a better analogy, right? Because we just had an additional 1.3 million people file for unemployment. That, of course, adds to the more than 40 million people that are currently out of work. And yet, our official unemployment rate, okay, it's about 11%, right? And so they're saying, yeah, well, but it went down, right? It's only about 11.1%. It was at like 13, so it's been down. We're actually getting better, right? Unofficially, though, we have an unemployment rate that's actually more closer to the 20s. So that's what that is, right? And yet, of course, Donald Trump, Betsy DeVos, and some Republican governors, like Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, are continuing to push to reopen their schools and get things all back to normal. In fact, DeSantis is the governor of Florida, as they said, which is a state that has become the global hotspot for coronavirus infections, is now averaging about near 10,000 cases a day, is ordering schools to reopen for in-person classes as early as next month. And it's not just, like reopening classes. No, this is like 5-day in-person, pack all the kids into the schools classes. Not good. That's a bad idea, because the danger in that, of course, is if you have large class sizes, then you end up with no social distancing. And of course, if you don't fund it, then teachers don't get PPE, and neither do students. And so there's some problems, right? Look, we've had schools that have been defunded to the point of which they can't even afford books. And teachers and parents are forced to bring in their own school supplies. There's no extra money for masks. But here's the thing. Betsy DeVos knows this, doesn't care. They don't care at all, which is why NEA president and sixth grade teacher Lily Eskelsen Garcia went after him in a statement. She said, quote, "No one should listen to Donald Trump or Betsy DeVos when it comes to what is best for students. If Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos have proven anything over the past 4 years, it's that they do not care about students. They have zero credibility for how to best support students and how to reopen classrooms safely." Again, Donald Trump, he's pretty much over coronavirus. So he just wants to put it behind him. Like owing states or cities that he's done rallies in money. You just forget about it. Just put it behind me, right? Not interested in dealing with it. I'm not interested in dealing with coronavirus. I'm not interested in dealing with my past bills. I'm not interested in dealing with basically anything. So let's just move on, go back to normal, and hopefully I can win so that I can continue to do nothing. Now, Garcia has a challenge for DeVos and Trump. Quote, "I dare Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos to sit in that classroom where the kids don't have what they need to be safe, and the school doesn't have enough money to provide a hotspot or a device for them because it's the Senate's failure to finish their job." So I kind of like the idea of Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos sitting in the class, right? For one, who knows? Maybe Donald Trump might learn something. I could imagine Trump being put in the kindergarten class. Okay, Donnie, you need to color within the lines, okay? Oh, you didn't? That's okay, big guy. It's okay. Gold star for you. I feel like that's the right kind of environment for Donald Trump because at least he's going to get enough praise for not crapping his pants. All right. Anyway. So now Garcia also continued with that thought by saying, where they and educators don't have the masks and PPE they need, where they can't socially distance because there are 40 kids in the class. And so that's, again, going back to the suggestion that they sit in class. So California's large class sizes, pretty much every school has been defunded to the point of where you have huge class sizes. And so maybe we need to fund education. So, but like I said before, Republicans don't care. Donald Trump and DeVos doesn't care. Trump's strategy, by the way, is to give the appearance that everything's getting back to normal without really doing anything to solve any problems. He thinks that one extra additional check, a coronavirus check, right, that he's been pushing lately, and then reopening everything will allow him to salvage his dismal re-election chances. The problem is his focus on we must reopen the economy at all costs is actually losing in voters. I mean, look, a lot of these voters want to actually live through this. I mean, it turns out that most older voters don't actually want to be sacrificed to the economy. Who knew, right? Who knew? That's why Donald Trump is losing to Joe Biden in Florida. And a lot of those same older voters are very unhappy with Ron DeSantis. I mean, his approval rating, which was actually pretty decent. He was at a 58% approval rating, which is not bad for a Republican governor, has taken a dive. It's went from 58 to 51%. And that's because he began reopening the state too early. And now, of course, they have a massive, massive spike in coronavirus cases. Now, compare that to other governors across the country that have taken a more measured approach. For example, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. Now, she has been threatened. She's been attacked by the president, and, called out. And yet, the measures that she has taken in Michigan have actually gained her double-digit increases in her approval ratings. And so, look, it works. Turns out when you actually try to do the right thing and give a shit about the people, that you're supposed to give a shit about, your constituents, well, you get a little bit more popular. And look, most Americans, they do take this virus very seriously. And when the politicians, when they mess around and they don't take it seriously, they get punished at the polls. And so that's why you're probably going to see in a lot of places a wipeout of Republican politicians and senators, people who are not taking this seriously. So now Trump is saying, again, that the Democrats and that these people, they want to close it for political reasons. What kind of possible political reason would Democrats have to keep schools closed? You know, schools, the things that conservatives say are, what is it, Marxist training camps? Little places that brainwash your children into communism. I mean, that's the argument that conservatives make against public education all the time. And now suddenly the same conservatives are like, we got to get the kids back in school, guys. We got to hurry up. Go, go, go. Get them back into school. I wonder what changed. Look, we all want to get the kids back to school. We all want to get back to life as soon as possible, right? Unfortunately, we can't do things the way that we used to do, right? What we need in order to get the kids back to school is we need small class sizes. We need PPE. We need more long distance learning tools just in case, right? And that means, guess what? The federal government's got to do their job to help fund schools so they can afford to do these things. Betsy DeVos is not a proponent of that. She has been against that because she personally benefits financially from starving schools of revenue and directing that money towards private charter schools. Again, she kind of ruined the education system here in Michigan by doing the same thing, by setting up charter schools, which, look, I'm not saying every charter school is bad, but I'm saying the majority of them, at least in Michigan, that are DeVos linked, that are DeVos affiliated, well, they're not doing so well. In fact, they're doing terribly. But for her, it's a way for them to be religiously affiliated, to teach creationism, and to not treat, to not actually be held to any sort of higher standards. And so, look, I wouldn't even be against private schools per se, as long as they had specific educational standards that they would have to meet, and that they got no, funding from the government, no government taxpayer money. Unfortunately, we don't have those kind of private schools. So now, that said, Betsy DeVos is also a religious fundamentalist. So she's anti-science, and so probably doesn't even believe in COVID-19. And so doesn't care at all about the safety of these students. She probably believes, well, yeah, hey, look, if you're covered in the blood of Jesus, then you're going to be okay. Then you'll be protected from COVID-19. That doesn't work. I mean, just the fact that people who have, contracted COVID-19 at church and have also seen church leaders, pastors that have died because they didn't take coronavirus seriously, should be all the evidence you need to know that being covered in quote unquote the blood of Jesus is not really an effective way of fighting coronavirus. I mean, you could cover yourself in the blood of Jesus as well as a mask and stay 6 feet away, and then you're going to be all right. Just saying. Now, what we need to do, and here's some of the solutions, right? Is we need to listen to the teachers, for one, as well as listen to, more importantly, the health experts on when and how to safely reopen the schools, as well as the country. Now, Garcia and the NEA suggest this, that in the absence of a cohesive school reopening strategy from the Trump White House, we should do things like, quote, Congress needs to provide at least $175 billion more for education stabilization. In addition, we're calling for $56 million in directed funding for protective equipment, at least $4 billion to create a special fund to help close the digital divide. Even when schools do open, they will likely need to incorporate online learning. Garcia also urged Congress to pass Pramila Jayapal's Paycheck Guarantee Act, which would use federal grant money to cover 100% of worker benefits and salaries up to $100,000 for 3 months. And I don't think any of the things that they have called for is unreasonable, right? We should be doing this. I mean, look, and if you're worried about how we're going to pay for it, well, guess what? Senator Bernie Sanders just came out with a very modest proposal to cut the Pentagon budget by only 10%. I say that's a modest proposal because I would go as far as cutting it by 50%. So um, if you're interested in moderation, I mean, we could go with the 10 and just use that money to fund PPE for the schools, and large, making sure that we have smaller class sizes and more distance learning opportunities for people who are all right with that. I mean, that's just what I would suggest. I'm hoping they could at least find some of this money somewhere because, look, throughout this entire pandemic, we have bailed out corporations, right? Corporations, the banks, we've even bailed out religious organizations. Why not the students? Why not the teachers? Because it's not like we can't afford to do so. It's just like always, we seem to lack the political will to do the right thing. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.